to share their experiences, whether if it's in the workplace in a position where they've been accused and they haven't really done anything, or if they've been harassed and they didn't know how to come forward. So let's just keep thinking about it. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
You're listening to Straight No Chaser. We'll be right back.
DWI, even at first, it's pretty harsh. You don't realize, you know?
Up to 90 days in jail.
Can't be there for my family.
I'm in here. They're out there.
They put an ignition interlock in your car for 1 year.
Car won't start unless you blow into it.
It's embarrassing.
You gotta pay fees, get a lawyer.
Need to see my probation officer for testing all the time.
Have to pick up garbage.
It literally consumes your life.
I lost my family's trust.
Lost my job.
I lost my marriage.
I lost my kids.
Lost a lot of time, you know? A DWI is just a big waste of time.
Leave me alone.
When a child shares hurtful comments online, that's bullying. Visit erasebullying.ca to learn how to help your child stand up to cyberbullying.
I just remembered it's election day. Are you going to vote?
I don't know. I don't think I'll have time today.
Millions of eligible voters in America never make it to the polls or even register to vote. When you don't vote, you're letting other people make decisions for you and pick the things your taxes will pay for. Voting is more than a civic duty. It gives you a voice about the priorities and the future of your community and our nation. Voting gives you a seat at the table.
You're listening to Straight No Chaser. So let's get back to your girl Ambeezy, Pastor C, and the Chief.
Welcome back. Before we get back into our awesome discussion that we've been having this evening, I also wanted to shout out the Las Vegas alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta.
Right.
They are having their Stomp event Saturday, October 20th from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the West Las Vegas Library Theater at 951 West Lake Mead Boulevard, and West Las Vegas Arts Center and Amphitheater on 947 West Lake Mead Boulevard. Stomp is basically their movement. Well, it stands for Standing Together Opposing Misuse of Power, and it's their movement where they are trying to teach how to advocate for yourself and your loved ones during these situations of domestic abuse and any type of abuse. So misuse of power in the workplace, in relationships, any of these areas. So come out. They'll have community resources and experienced professionals. They'll have some interactive workshops, and it'll just be an all-around positive place for you to come and talk about these things and learn about the things that you can do. So shout out to them for Stomp.
Why Stomp?
Okay, so back to our discussion. We've been talking about the explosion of the Me Too movement. And as with any movement, there are non-believers who think the allegations are causing innocent people to be fired or subjected to ridicule. And they also wonder why the accusers wait so long to bring forth an allegation. So, Pastor C and Thinbad, why do you think people wait? Terry Crews waited. Some of Weinstein's accusers waited. So, why do you think people wait before they come out with these allegations? I mean, I have my opinion. but I want to hear what you guys have to say first.
You know,
Well,
go ahead, Tim.
go ahead.
No. I want to hear you, sir. I want to hear you.
I think some of what we see going on right now is a lot of the scrutiny. People are like, they're weighing it and they're like, is it worth it?
Right. That's
it. Is it worth this now? Because it's not only affecting them, but family, but people attached to them. If they've got children who are in school and they're going to be all over the news, the children are going to have to deal with it. And people are like, if I sat with it this long, and then you have others who say, I guess they feel it depends on what's going on, like what we're dealing with now, in terms of the Supreme Court justice situation. Now people are, and you see what happens. You end up blaming the victim ends up getting blamed.
Sure.
Or all of the onus is on the victim. So now, and if you notice, what's interesting is everyone's always asking or saying what the woman should do, or questioning the woman who was in this particular case, and in most cases who were bringing the allegations, and they question them. But the question I always want to raise is, how come who's teaching the men?
Yeah.
Who is teaching the men? Because they're always asking, well, what's happening? Why were you in the room that late? What were you wearing? Why did you wait so long? And who really wants to it's almost like putting, salt in a wound.
Yeah.
The wound is already there. They've taken all this time, and they've waited, and they know what they're going to be faced with, and they come up anyway, and then they're bombarded with all of this other stuff. Is it a political ploy? Things can be political ploys, but it still doesn't negate what happened.
Right.
If the politicians use it for a political ploy, that's one thing. But if someone's coming forward, I think they deserve to be heard. They deserve to be given the time to kind of speak, should they so choose, without all of this, well, why now? Well, where were you,
Right.
30 years ago?
Yeah.
And then in this particular case, the person had been dealing with it, to talk with their therapist. And that's another thing. Now the therapist's notes become kind of public knowledge, or at least beyond, who wants all of that stuff out?
Exactly. Exactly.
And everything is leaking, if you're sending things through email or something, so I think people look at it and they say, you know what? I don't know if it's worth it at this point. I've kind of learned how to manage this pain for however long that I've managed it. And, something my grandmother used to say, sometimes, dead things smell twice as bad when you dig them back up. And I think some folks just would rather not deal with what the potential mess that they would have, not only on their hands, but their family members, their loved ones, their workplaces. They've got jobs, all kinds of things will start to happen. So I think that's why they wait, and they either decide at some point, I'm going to bring it up and go with it, or I'm not. But I just think the main thing is, what's the value? What am I
gaining?
What value is it to me at this point to do that? And I think in this particular case, when you're dealing with the Supreme Court justice, because one of the things that people aren't saying, and I'm going specific to this particular case because this is what's happening right now. I know, and the political folks won't say it, but I know in their mind they're like, they were teenagers.
Right.
They were 17 and 18. That was 40 years ago. Who, and I, like everybody else, hey, I wouldn't want somebody to come back and say you can't do something because when you were 17 years old, you did X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But then I ask people about, well, would you ask the question? Let's change the quote unquote crime. Would you ask the same question if, say, she was coming up and say she saw that he murdered someone?
Right.
Would you then say, he was 17 or 18, or would you say, well, justice needs to happen? And if your answer changes based on what the crime is, then then Pastor C, a sin is a sin is a sin.
Yes, period.
So there are no degrees.
Right.
So if you're seeking justice for murder, then you need to be seeking justice for harassment. Then you need to be seeking justice for justice sake. Regardless of what the crime is or what's been done. But for me, in this particular case, because he's running for Supreme Court justice, and I'm not making light at all of any harassment or anything like that, but the bigger issue for me in his particular case is if he did it or not. Whenever he did it, it's the fact that he's saying, I unequivocally deny, that's never happened. So if you're knowingly lying and you want to be a Supreme Court justice,
oh, come on,
I got
now.
a different issue.
Absolutely.
I got an issue with that.
Absolutely.
And I think a fact that not a lot of people realize is a lot of times when people have been doing something from such a young age, but a pivotal age. So, 17 is still young, but you're still growing into an adult. You're still kind of being accountable for your actions. When you go through life and you've never been held accountable for things like that, I guarantee you that's not the only woman he's done it to.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you. So it's not really the fact of the fact of the matter is not that he did it, but that speaks for his character.
Sure.
That speaks for, okay, he did this years ago and was able to A, forget it, B, deny it, and C, since he's never even been held accountable for it, what's he been doing since he's been 17?
Sure.
So, and also, I think with any situation when a person, man or female, is dealing with sexual harassment or abuse in the workplace, there's always this crossroads of, do I say something or do I advance in my career? And it can go back to these NFL protests, how we were talking about how some of these players don't protest because this is their livelihood. It's the same thing with sexual harassment in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Especially women who are competing for these higher level positions and things like that. They're not going to come forward if the guy that this is all going to fall on is the one in charge of her getting that big promotion, because two things can happen. She can report it and something is done about it, and then, okay, that's great. But if something's not done about it, she can kiss that promotion goodbye.
Yeah.
And same with a man. If a man is depending on a woman or a man, let's not even be gender, exclusive. If any person is dealing with a person who has a position of power and they're working hard to advance in that career, they don't know whether to report it or to deal with it and maybe gain some kind of favoritism from this person and get to where they go and then move on from it later. I mean, later on in the show, this is already going to come up, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there with these Bill Cosby accusers, right? Mm-hmm. We love Bill Cosby. We watched him on The Cosby Show. We watched A Different World. When these things started coming out, we were like, no way. And then 10 more. And then 5 more. And next thing you know, you're up to 30 accusers. And people are like, well, why didn't they come out? Hello. If you are in Hollywood as a beginning actress who has only done a Milk Dud commercial and you encounter Bill Cosby, you're not gonna say nothing. You're trying to be the best you can be. And this guy at that time was the man, especially if you wanted to be a black actress or actor. So I just think that unfortunately the victims are put in this weird place where it's like, okay, do I say something against this man who everybody admires, everybody talks about, everybody knows that he's the man around here, and then they're gonna look at little old me like, what are you talking about? Or do I say something?
Well, I believe this though. I think there's 2 reasons why people don't say anything. Number 1, embarrassment, and number 2, fear.
Right.
It is embarrassing at times, depending upon how egregious the harassment is or was. You are embarrassed. You don't know who to talk to because there is a psychological effect that happens within the person, and then there's fear. You fear being rejected. You fear that no one will believe you, and then, you fear how this is going to affect your life, period, And when I consider Mr. Cosby, I do want to say